grapes and planted more fresh market grapes. So we're up to about 1,000 vines now. We have 10 different varieties that we use for pick your own. And if you're just getting into the business, it helps to check the Ison's website and buy early varieties and late varieties, and that'll stretch your season out. If you just have one variety, your pick your own season might be 2 or 3 weeks long, and that's it. But we're able to stay open for 6 to 8 weeks in the fall because we've got the wide range of ripening times of our varieties. Um, as far as pick your own, that's now our major source of income. Nancy and I are both retired, and it pays the bills, and it's a full-time business for us. So every year we look for different things to do to improve the business. But as Debbie said, um, keeping the vineyard clean and open is very positive to our customers because a lot of them are coming in from the city, from Chapel Hill or Raleigh, and they've never been to a farm before. And so to come out and have a vineyard that they can walk through and bring their children and enjoy the outdoors, it's really a positive experience for them. So we enjoy our customers when they come out and tell us how beautiful our vineyard is. From the business standpoint, like I said, we're planting new varieties every year. I try them out just to see if our customers like them, and if they have a positive response, we'll plant 10 or 15 vines of that variety. So we continue to evolve as time goes on. That's
Right.
pretty much it. Where we are today, getting ready for the 2022 season.
Yeah, right. Andy, you said you have 10 varieties. Are there what varieties that work best for you or that customers react to best? Or, and is it an issue if they develop preferences for them, or is that a good thing? So.
I'd say our most popular variety is Scarlet. Scarlet, I think a lot of it has to do with they stay really firm. They've got a really nice, crisp mouthfeel, very sweet, and they're a real nice size. So I'd say Scarlet is our number one seller. They clean out every single grape on all our Scarlet bushes, and I think I've got 100 Scarlet bushes, and they're cleaned out every year. And then next after that probably is our Terra, which is the big white one. So between the pink and the white, we've got Scarlet and Terra. And then finally Supreme. They like the really nice big red ones. Also nice crisp mouthfeel and good sugar with the Supreme.
Right. And you said you still have some wine varieties, some Carlos and Noble left over from when you were a winemaker. How do you handle those?
I've got some connections with local microbrews, and they'll come get several buckets for beer making. Believe it or not, we've got a lot of home brewers that like making sour beers that have fruit flavors to them. So we sell grapes to breweries. And also I've got some home winemakers that'll come and they'll buy 5 or 6 5-gallon pails of grapes for those. So usually by the end of the year, we're pretty much picked out of everything between the U-Pick and the home winemakers and the brewers. Everything gets gone.
Deborah, what do you have to say about varieties?
Well, if I'm going to stand up and let you see my T-shirt, whatever it says, is it backwards? I don't know. And what does it say? Shelter from Grace. A local winery here a couple years ago bought a lot of my grapes. And this is the beer. They made actually 3 different kinds of beer from my Muscadines. And then there is a microbrewery up in Asheville that comes in. Well, last year he got 1,000 pounds. I have not tried his beer, but anyway, I'm looking forward to that part of my market as well, to make beer out of my Muscadines.
And in your pick your own, are there varieties that are most popular?
Well, actually, nobody asks for them. I have 5 varieties: Terra, Triumph, Nesbitt, Supreme, and Summit. and a lot of those that Andy was talking about, they mostly go by color rather and ripeness rather than they're asking for anything. So I have been happy with the varieties that I selected. I bought these grapes in, as I said, in 2012 from Old Courthouse Nursery. Andy, do you remember them?
That doesn't ring a bell.
Well, they're from North Carolina. When I decided to do this, I wanted my muscadine plants to be from North Carolina. So I went in with Irvin Lineberger and Jason Rhodes. We all bought grapes from Old Courthouse Nursery back in 2012. And I have not moved on to anything else. I have, as I said, a little over 2 acres of muscadines. And but it might be fun, and there is attrition all the time. So I think if I get all my ducks in the row, I can get new plants ordered and have a place for them at the beginning of next year. Planting is was in March of 2012. So
Great. So let me just mention to our group here, if you have a question or you want to ask a question at any time, you do it in the chat, or you can also in the reactions area, there's a place where you can raise your hand, and so I mean, you can try blurting it out in the middle, but we'll probably be flustered. So if you raise your hand, I'll try to watch for that. But if you put a question into the chat, I'll see it, and I'll try to make sure it gets asked. And later on, we'll have a chance for all of you to talk about what you do, because I know there's a number of really skilled and experienced pick your own people that are not part of our original panel here, and you all have something to add here. So.
And we want you all to do that.
Yeah, we really do. I mean, this is a discussion. This is not a webinar. So,
right.
So let me ask about when customers first show up at your place. What's the process they go through? Is there any kind of explanation or training? You give them containers? Do they bring their own containers? Do you have somebody there to show them what's what? Andy, I'll let you start with that. So
we set up a big 10 by 20 tent right in between the parking lot and the vineyard. And you saw the yellow tape in a previous picture that Debbie put up. We actually kind of make a funnel out of the tape to funnel everybody to our tent. And in the tent, my wife Nancy has a big poster board, and she has taken pictures of our grapes and a big circle around them saying, this one is ripe and this one is not ripe. And you can look at the board and see what grapes that you're supposed to pick, because a lot of people will come out and they don't know the difference between a ripe muscadine and a green muscadine. So we actually have a pictorial display of the different varieties and which ones they should pick and they shouldn't pick. We did make a big change 2 years ago with COVID. We used to weigh our grapes like most people do, and the weighing of the grapes, there's a lot of customer interaction. You handle the buckets, you handle the grapes, you have to weigh them, you make change, you have to have small change for the price of the grapes. And we got away from that entirely, and we don't weigh our grapes anymore. When you come to our vineyard, you buy an empty bucket, and we charge you a picking fee. And the fee covers what we think that bucket will hold, and of course the price of the bucket. And you go out into the vineyard, fill your bucket, and then leave. So there's very little interaction. And we found out that really helps from a staffing standpoint. When we were weighing grapes, we'd have to have minimum of 3 people, sometimes 5 people under the tent, just processing people in and out. Now 1 person can handle it. They just hand out buckets. The other thing, our sales went up. We'd have situations before, where a family would come in and, kids really love to share, if they're going to share a bucket, right? Everybody wants a bucket. So 7 buckets would go out in the vineyard and one would come back maybe half full. So we'd have to go out and find the other 6, wash them, sanitize them, and get them ready for the next day. So by getting away from the reusing the buckets, that solved a lot of problems in washing and sanitizing and reusing the equipment. So we sell empty buckets, and people instead of going out and just browsing, they're out there to fill that bucket. So we found that we're actually selling more grapes because people want to fill that bucket. So it's
Andy,
big
what's your
thing.
price? What's your price per bucket?
The 1 gallon bucket, we use the buskets that we get from Southern Container. Last year, our price was $12. So basically it was $10 for the grapes and $2 for the bucket. We also have 2 gallon buckets, which is twice the price. So you're paying for the amount of grapes in the bucket plus the bucket. And if you want to reuse the bucket, we do give credit for the bucket price if you want to come back a second time and use the bucket, but we don't accept the buckets back. We just don't want to be in the business of washing and sanitizing buckets that other people will be touching.
So Deborah, what's your system when people come in, how they get
Yes.
oriented and how they pick?
Yes. Well, as I say, my little vineyard shed is strategically located, so they'll turn in the sign straight down the drive. Parking is off to the right. A lot of the old time customers will just pull in front of the little shed, but I usually park a vehicle, which gives the people an idea, oh, I guess we're supposed to park here, rather than come right on down into the little shed. But when they get there, I give them a bucket. This is a gallon bucket, and I line it with this big plastic bag. They're called t-shirt bags. And then they just pick whatever they need and whatever they fill the bucket, and then they take the bag out and go home with the bag. That way then I can recycle my buckets because they're only touching the handle, and we did Clorox, with one of the Clorox wipes, the handle, when we got the bucket back. But everything appears to be sanitary with these plastic bags. The bags I'm using are 12 by 7 by 22 inch. I called Uline this morning just to see if they had any other different sizes. And they've got a 7 by 5 by 16 or 10 by 6 by 21. And then their largest bags are 18 by 10 by 30. And again, what I'm using is 12 by 7 by 22. So, and they're absolutely sturdy. That just saves me a lot of wear and tear.
So Deborah, what's your price? Do you weigh them after they fill their bag? Or do you sell by the pound?
No.
You sell by the bucket?
By the bucket, and that is $10 a bucket.
Okay, so it's a similar thing. It's a gallon bucket, like
it is.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I have never weighed. Only I'm weighing my 1,000 pounds for my microbrewery up in Asheville, but I've not weighed them. It's just, to me, what fills a bucket is worth $10. But Andy, and you mentioned something about tax and all that business. What I try to do is round up the price of things so that, it's either $5 or $10. I'll handle a $1 bill and have change for all that. But if you can round up, and people like it better too, they're loaded with a $5 bill or 2 5s and a 10 and so forth.
Do either of you accept credit cards?
I don't, Debbie, and that's probably I just haven't gone into the
Okay.
physical way to do that.
Mhm.
This might be the year. But I've had one person go to the ATM at the gas station on the top of the hill. But everybody else seems to have cash. They seem to know that that's what I accept.
Andy, how about
Yeah. We use Square. We've used it. It's a carryover from the winery. And I'd say about half of our business is credit card business. And we find that we also have other items for sale. Last year we did jams and jellies and juice. And we find that if the people can use their credit card, they'll buy a case of juice in addition to the grapes, and they just put it on the credit card. And the nice thing about the Square reader is it's just you just tap the card on the Square reader. So again, there's no handling of cards. And the nice thing about Square too is it does keep a record of all the customers that have used that card. So when we send out a newsletter, we've got all our customers from last year that use that card that we can contact and say, we're open for business again. Hope to see you.
That's great.
Wow, that's great.
I want to open it up now for people, for our participants here to weigh in on these questions we've been asking, which is how do you manage, your customers, how do you sell, and what your prices are. So if you would like to talk, unmute yourself, and we'll see if it's a kind of a free for all here. But I know a number of you have experience with this. You can unmute yourself and just start talking, or you can raise your hand and I'll call on you.
Andy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm curious about where you're buying your plastic buckets.
We have two sources. Our 1 gallon buskets we get from Southern Container in Wilson.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, they come in a case of 150, and I just ordered 3 cases this morning. Because we don't recycle our buckets, we do go through quite a few buckets, but they're, again, just from a handling standpoint, they're brand new. The customers like them. They haven't been reused, and they have good uses around the home. And then our 2 gallon buckets, we've been getting them from actually from Home Depot. From Home Depot, you can order them in boxes of 10. And if you have a credit card and an account with Home Depot, they're always sending out incentives. And so I'll get something in the mail saying $25 off on your next order. So I'll order another 10 pack of 2 gallon buckets and get $25 off that order. So and free delivery. So yeah, the 2 gallon buckets are great from Home Depot.
I've been using.
What do you charge for your grapes?
I'm going up this year.
Okay.
I am located in a fairly rural area. And so in my view, my clientele is only going to pay X amount, but I will be going to $12 a gallon this year.
Okay. Okay.
And
And
then
you do it all by the gallon?
no, actually we have 2 quart and 1 quart as well.
Okay.
But the gallon tends to be the biggest seller. Now I also have quite a few. We have a commercial pick. We're doing clamshells for customers, but we also have some bulk pack. And depending on whether they come and pick it, say, a couple of 5 gallon buckets, or depending on whether we have to pick for them, I'm pricing those at $3 a pound and $4 a pound.
How about some of the rest of you? Nancy, I know you do pick your own. You're close to right there in the triangle, so it should be a pretty good market for you. Nancy, tell us about yours.
Okay. We've been doing it a long time, but we only have 2 acres. It's all pick your own. There's a lot of people around here. We're just like a mile from I-40 in Durham, within sight of the city limits. We have been selling it. We've sold it by the pound, and we've also sold it, starting with coronavirus, by the gallon. And I'm interested in what y'all said, because I was thinking that we were going to go back to selling it by the pound, in part because the grapes roll out of that 1-gallon bucket, and it just makes me cry to see them on the ground like that. I just can't stand it. And when we lined the buckets with bags, which was our old way, people pull the bag way up and got a whole lot more grapes in it than just the bucket will hold. So maybe I'm just kind of mean, but I just don't like that. And so, so also, as you say, when you sell it by the pound, there's more customer interaction. But I've learned a lot from that customer interaction, from hearing what people have to say, what they liked. I look in their bucket, I see what they picked, I hear what they said, and I just kind of enjoy it. But it does mean more staffing and more trouble. And so, I just don't know whether, I think this year, and then the scale, tends to screw up when the wind blows and stuff like that. And between one thing and another, maybe by the bucket is the way to go, like y'all are doing. So it was real interesting to hear you say that. The other thing I would like to hear you all comment on is the children in the vineyard they don't know how to pick the grapes. And I try to explain to their parents that children can pick a lot of grapes fast, but you have to teach them how to pick the right ones. But as you say, the parents barely know themselves how to pick the right ones. And I see where they dump them out, the ones the children's picked. In fact, one woman dumped them out right in front of the stand. Oh, these aren't right. I don't want these. And again, maybe because our vineyard is small, but seeing the customers waste the grapes just really upsets me. Okay, chill out. We've been doing this a long time. But can y'all comment at all on, do I just need to suck it up? Or is there anything I could do about this?
Well, I welcome parents and their children. Again, I have a pretty venue. I don't mind them running up and down the aisles. If they're little kids, they're not going to pick for long. I usually see them sitting on the ground after they've done a few. And the older children are teachable. I usually go out with a group of people and describe to them. You squeeze them and you can tell if they're as soft as the pad of your thumb, they're ripe.
And, I like that, the pad of your thumb.
Yeah, I mean, it's tactile. They can feel that. So I've not really had a problem with children.
Nancy, if I'm not mistaken, you stopped out in Zebulon
last
year.
Yes, I love your place. Right.
You're the reason that I'm going up on my price.
Good.
So
good.
I appreciate you sharing the information. Now, as far as kids are concerned, I am actively trying to make a place where kids can feel comfortable. I've got chairs out there. I've got picnic tables. I've got miniature picnic tables for little kids. As far as I'm concerned, if we can generate a family atmosphere, let's do it.
Right.
Are we going to lose some grapes? Yeah, we are.
Okay.
But frankly, I have less trouble with kids than I do with people who are trying to put 40 pounds in a 20-pound bucket. That's what galls me.
Andy, how about kids at your vineyard?
Again, we try and encourage a family atmosphere as well. We have a little picnic grove, and we even have it on our website. Bring a picnic lunch, go out and pick some grapes, and then have a lunch with your grapes and whatever you've brought. And again, the children, like you said, they get tired after a few minutes, and mainly we try and make sure that they stay with the adults. We've got a fairly large area here of 10 acres, and we don't want them wandering off and getting lost. So, we just stress that they stay close to the adults. But yeah, we get families that come out and they just enjoy being out in the vineyard, and whether maybe they're living in town or living in an apartment, and just to get out in some fresh air, they really enjoy that.
So two things about picking grapes. One is, from a food safety point of view, university people are going to tell you shouldn't let people pick grapes in your vineyard. I don't see how you could possibly prevent it. And I think probably the best you can do is what Andy's doing, or is just have hand washing there. I mean, encourage people to wash their hands before they go pick. And then the other thing is something that I noticed when I was doing sampling at the farmer's market. For very, very young children, 1-year-old, 2-year-old, it's unsafe for them to eat whole grapes because they're a choking hazard. And so hopefully parents are aware of that, but I felt really nervous about giving samples of grapes to toddlers because they can choke on them. If you've ever seen stuff for parents, they tell you to cut things like that in half so the kid can't choke on it. So you probably are never going to have a kid choke to death in your vineyard, but it's just, I don't know, it makes me nervous, and I stopped handing grapes to really little kids. So
I have a question for the other growers. My pet peeve is people that come just to eat. And I don't know how you handle that. I have a golf cart, and I kind of drive around through the vineyard during the pick your own hours. And if I see somebody sitting on the ground with the bucket, just eating out of the bucket, that really upsets me. I mean, they're taking advantage of us. It's our only income. We're retired, and it's like, come on, it's a few dollars worth out of my pocket, but still, do you really have to take advantage of the situation? So I don't know how y'all
do you do
handle
anything about it? Do you do
people
anything?
that just, sometimes I'll mention it to them. I'll go up and say, do you want another bucket? Looks like yours is full, and they kind of get the idea. But some people just come to eat.
At
Well,
least they had to
actually-
buy the bucket before they started. So,
Well, I mean, I don't give, well, sometimes people will pay me, but most of the time they'll pay me as they're coming back by the little vineyard shed and go to their car. So, I mean, if they're there, they're gonna pay me because they have a bucket, and they have to return the bucket to me and then take their little t-shirt bag full of muscadine. I also, up until maybe this year, encourage them. I'd say, find a grape that you think is ripe, eat it. If it tastes good, then look for those that are the same as what you just eaten, which would indicate to them that is what's ripe or to their taste. And I have to agree, some people will fill, because these are big t-shirt bags, will fill up more than the gallon bucket. But I don't really care about that, because if they can't eat them all, they're going to give some to their neighbors, and their neighbors are going to say, where did you get those? I may get some more customers from an excess of muscadines that somebody took with them.
there was one comment in the chat from Will Langhorns asking us if $10 to $12 a gallon is the standard market price around here. And he mentions that he's charging $25 a gallon for blueberries and blackberries, which I would say they're a hell of a lot harder to pick, and it takes longer to fill a gallon. So there's really no comparison between picking blueberries and picking muscadines, because the muscadines are so much bigger and easier to pick. But do any of the rest of you want to weigh in on pricing by the gallon to give him some more information about what he might be wanting to charge?
Well, I'm going to ask a question of all of you here. How much does a gallon weigh? Because I'm usually thinking $2 a pound for muscadines, and I could be way low.
It varies. It varies a lot. Depends on the size of the grapes. So,
Well, I just
We've weighed our buckets.
off of Ison's website because I was interested in that question too. They have on there a gallon of muscadine fruit weighs approximately 5.5 to 6 pounds.
Exactly.
I presume, depending on size.
Yeah, we've confirmed that. We fill up a bucket and we mound them up pretty high, and we get between 5.5, 6 pounds per bucket.
Yeah.
Debbie, to answer the inquiry that came in through chat, I think while most of us are probably in that $10 to $12 range, I believe there is some price elasticity depending on where you're located.
Yes.
and what
Yes.
your clientele is. Nancy's acreage, as I understand it, is bounded on three sides by some fairly affluent neighborhoods. So she can come up with one price.
Our
Mine-
grapes are certified organic, like yours are too, TY. And
Yeah.
so I charge a little bit more for that too, though I must say only some of our customers care. Our old time customers don't care at all. But I also have kind of a senior citizens price for our old customers. People who've been picking at our farm for 20 years, I'm not going to charge them the same that I charge, these newcomers who have a lot, they have a lot of money. But yes, we charged $20 a gallon last year when we were selling it by the gallon.
So,
Well,
Will, you just raised your hand. If you want to ask a question, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hey, so kind of give you a brief description. What I'm up against is I have an established pick your own fruit farm, pick your own majority. What I've done is 3 years ago, I planted, I guess it's 40 vines, 5 varieties, just as kind of a test to see if there's any interest to kind of extend the season to couple with pick your own apples. And being as this will be the first year picking just on 40 vines, my concern is, I guess, having too many customers versus how much fruit I have. So I was thinking about, I didn't know if it'd be worth trying to sell half gallons baskets rather than gallons just to serve more people. And then I'm curious of what I could get for that. If $8 for half gallon is just absurd, I have no idea. But again, I'm trying to make it worth the time that's been and work that's been invested in it to this point. But again, it is a trial. It's not a huge crop of it, and understand that.
As people have said, your price is going to depend on whether there are other competing vineyards nearby you, because it's difficult to charge, somebody's charging $8 a gallon. It's going to be very hard for you to come in at 16. If you're the only one with muscadines, you have a specialty crop and you've got something special that nobody else has. And then as 2I says, it depends on the pocketbook also of your customers. Some people have more money than others. And are they, looking for food, or are they looking for treats? I would see if there are people nearby you that already have grapes, and find out sort of what your local market will bear.
Will, let me also add that we've been talking in terms of gallons, but at my vineyard, I offer the customer 3 choices. There's a 1 quart, 2 quart, 4 quart. So perhaps if you limited to 1 quart or 2 quarts, it might allow you to extend the customer base a little bit.
What you might also do is something that we do is we do pre-picked grapes in the smaller sizes. So in the morning, I will go out and a dozen quart clamshells of the different varieties, just to show the examples of what we have in the vineyard. And then we will also sell those. So if somebody comes in with a bucket of Scarlet and they see a quart of Supreme, they might decide to buy that quart of Supreme just to try a different style grape. So instead of doing all pick your own, you might do maybe half and half, do a lot of pre-picked and have them in your stand. And that way you can get a premium price for those.
Well, that's what I do, because a lot of my customers don't want to go into the vineyard. They want muscadines. So they just come to my little shed that I have already pre-picked. And as I described before, I've got the quart container. I charge $5 for that. And then there is a box that holds a gallon with 4 containers of those quart boxes. And I was selling those for $10, which would be cheaper because they're buying a lot. But I may go up on that price as well. But again, half my people really want them picked.
Andy, can I skip gears with you a moment, please?
Sure.
You mentioned selling juice.
Yes.
Have you got state approval because of the winery?
No, what we do is one of our presenters wasn't here today, but we actually take our grapes to Lou Mill and they will crush them, press them, and sell them back to us wholesale in sanitized bottles with our label on it.
Gotcha. And they're doing the cold press, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And Andy, is that true for your jams and jellies? They do those as well?
Now, the jams and jellies, we do our own, and we have a certified kitchen, and Nancy has taken the acidified foods class, so we are certified to do jams and jellies.
Okay, good, good.
So we have two people with their hands up. I'll call on Riley first. Riley, you'll need to unmute yourself. Yeah, I know you were trying to wave your hand around earlier. I saw that. Yeah.
My husband had to come. He's like, you know, there's a button that you can press. You don't have to raise your hand.
Well, it's cool. Either way it works. So.
Yeah, he came and helped me out. I really appreciate y'all's time today. I have 4 questions. The first one I was wondering is what you spray under your vines and how you spray it. Do you dilute anything?
Well, believe it or not, I don't spray under my vines. I have someone that helps me with my landscaping, and we're in the vineyard weed eating under all the vines. It takes them 2 days to weed eat with 44 rows. But I'm scared to put anything on that little strip under the vines with any chemicals at all.
Do you do any fungicide or any kind of insecticide spraying at all in your pick your own?
Oh yes, I do fungicide, but that's it. And maybe
We use a
little
product called
something. Go ahead.
a product called Scythe. So we use a product called Scythe, SCYTHE. It's an organic herbicide. It's a burn down herbicide. It's not systemic like Roundup or anything, and it's on the OMRI list to be approved. I don't know if it's been approved yet, but usually we have to do 2 applications. And then as far as the vines themselves, we spray nothing on the vines. We don't use a fungicide or a pesticide on our vines. And you don't need it. I mean, muscadines grow wild in the woods. They don't need chemicals. And it's also a liability thing. I mean, even though, even if we follow all the guidelines, I don't want anybody coming back saying, I got sick in your vineyard because they use sprays on my grapes. So we use no sprays on the vines, but we do use an herbicide under the vine called Scythe, which is it's called pelargonic acid, I believe, which is it's a burn down herbicide.
You mentioned that you skirt your plants. You cut the vines down about this time of year.
Yes, actually, I'm doing that this week. We hedge them about waist high, and what that does is that lets the air circulate a little bit better on the vine, so that we don't have mold and mildew growing under the vine. And then it also exposes the grapes so that when the people come and pick, they're not digging through a lot of foliage to try and find the grapes. So hedging the grapes does a lot of benefits to that.
Riley,
you had more
Riley,
questions.
if I could add something to what Deborah said, I sat through a presentation last week by a fellow named John Kempf, who is big in regenerative agriculture. And his suggestion is grow those weeds, cut them down, and just leave them. And it becomes part of the soil, and it's another method of getting biomass into the soil. He also thinks that if you plant clover under the vines, that those 2 root systems are very synergistic.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Yeah, so 3 more. One of them, do you guys have any additional insurance? Do you have a separate policy, or do you cover it under your homeowners, or do you just not worry about it?
I have everything on my property under the homeowners. And I was told by my insurance agency that it will cover anything that happens. I believe him.
Yeah, we have Farm Bureau insurance, and we have they know that we do a pick your own operation, so we have coverage for that. But there also is I don't know if it's still in effect in the state of North Carolina, there was a liability limitation clause. And if you put up a sign in your vineyard, it spells out what the limits of liability is in North Carolina, that it was specifically designed for pick your own and, pumpkin patches and corn mazes. It's just a sign that says you are on a farm. There are inherent dangers on a farm. There are bees and snakes and things that could harm you, and you assume liability when you come on this premises. And it's a pretty complete statement that you can go online and print out a large poster size of it and put it right there at your checkout counter.
I'll
Good
try to
idea.
gather some of these resources and send them to people after the webinar as well, if I can find some links to them. More questions? Hold on, Patrick, we'll get to you shortly. So go ahead. Go ahead, Riley. Can't hear you.
Fire ants?
Mhm.
How do you handle fire ants?
Well, in fact, we're out there today getting rid of fire ants. The worker that does my landscaping mows first, and that really uncovers where the ants are. And then he goes through, punches a hole in the mound, and then he'll pour, and I'm sorry, I don't know what we're pouring, but it's specifically for fire ants.
Mhm.
And we'll probably do that at least twice. I'm holding a Chamber of Commerce Business After Hours event in my vineyard on the 23rd of this month. So we'll go at least every week before the party. But we have found that to be really successful.
We don't treat them. I go out to Home Depot and get a batch of those little red flags, and we'll stick 2 or 3 of them in the ant mound, and then Nancy will take a picture of it and blow it up and put it right by the place where the customers get their buckets, and basically a big do not disturb sign so they know to stay away from it.
Okay.
That's smart. We try to kill them, but with our organic methods, I must say that they don't really die very much. And now we just put caution tape around them, and we've had more luck with the caution tape than we have had actually trying to kill them and then having them there at a low level. Because the customers are looking up into the vine, they're not looking down at the ground.
Oh, yeah.
And if they're there, but we just don't see them, next thing you have, crying children and people bitten, and it's the caution tape. I like your flag idea though. That's even easier.
Okay, I'm going to come to Patrick now, and Riley, we'll come back to you for your rest of your questions or new ones if you develop them. Patrick, unmute yourself and let us know what your questions are.
I guess I didn't quite.
Different.
Here we
Patrick,
go. I got it. I
different
just, it wasn't responding. Listen,
Patrick. Although Patrick, I want to come back. Patrick Connor, I want to come back to you later. So
my question's pretty short. I'm an interloper. I'm just planting some Muscadine grapes for the first time as a hobbyist, and I can't find people to help me. And I thought I'd crash this party, and these are experts. I'm on 11 acres, but where it's elevated, it's still wet. I live in Louisiana, and it's just not drained properly. So I'm going to have an elevated planter. And my question is, how big a root ball can I anticipate? I know they're very long-lived vines. How big would you suggest that I have a planter to plan for success and just plan on keeping it there? As a fun fact, what really drew me to, I grew up in the South, by the way. I used to live in Shelby. I heard someone's from Shelby.
Wow.
That I was drawn to.
I'm from Shelby.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Do you what I really was drawn to was the thin-skinned seedless variety, and I thought I'd give it a shot because I liked muscadine growing up, and I thought I'd give this a shot. But my question is, how big a planter should I have? They have some that are really pretty big, more like a galvanized metal that's a big round tub. But any idea on how big that root ball is going to get?
Well, when I planted mine back in 2012 from Old Courthouse Nursery here in North Carolina, It was just a long root. There were no, it was not a ball at all.
I see.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they just
Yeah.
pulled it out of the ground and, like a root hanging down. Now, we did have to, we did a post hole digger to dig the hole, and we tossed in different things because we're not organic. Some old timer around here came by and he said, you ought to be putting some soybean meal in there for your grapes. So we did. But anyway, and then we just put some dirt in around it, and then I guess that was it.
See, my problem is that when I dug a big hole and it rains, it just didn't drain. So I thought I'm going to get root rot at some point.
You're in a very different climate than we have here if you're in
Right.
Louisiana.
Right.
And I do suggest you to check with your state or county extension folks on to see what the recommendations are,
Sure.
both for planting and care, and also for varieties, because it's so much warmer there than
Right.
it is in North Carolina. And
Right,
Patrick
right.
Connor, who's on here, who is a breeder in Georgia, can probably attest to that. And I'm wondering if Patrick wants to tell us about any new varieties he thinks people should be trying. So
what I would do is, muscadines have very shallow root systems, and they'll go 20 feet in all directions. That's why they recommend that you plant them 20 feet apart. So I would wish you luck in trying them in a container, but I am very skeptical as to whether it would work. My best advice would be to, try and find the driest spot, and then in between every row, run a potato plow down that row and put a trench so that
I see.
those vines will drain all the time and you don't have any standing water. But again, shallow root systems that spread out within the first 18 inches of soil, that's a muscadine. They don't go straight down like some.
Oh, good. Because I'd say I've got probably at least maybe even 2 feet of topsoil before I hit this sort of clay-like. And, I live where they're just live oak. I mean, there are oak trees everywhere. So, and they're very shallow and they do well in wet environments. So this is very helpful. I really appreciate it.
And another comment in the chat also notes that they're very shallow rooted and don't have a root ball, don't go straight down. So.
Oh, good to know. That solved my problem. I didn't want a big planter in my side yard. Great. Thank you so much.
Okay. So continue please to ask questions if you have questions on this. I wanted to ask our presenters and everybody else, sort of Andy told the main issues he's had with customers coming in and sitting down and eating. But again, the issues you see with Pick Your Own and how you've solved them, if there are ones that we haven't mentioned at this time so far.
Well, I'm curious, and especially Andy, since you have so many acres and you've been doing this a long time, do you allow people coming in with their pets?
Okay, good question.
I was waiting for that question. No, we subscribe to GAP certificate. We're not certified GAP, but we follow their guidelines, and they're very strict about no animals in the vineyard. We haven't run into like seeing eye dogs or anything like that. But yeah, when we advertise on our website and we make sure that we have signage that we don't allow animals in the vineyard, and it's a GAP certification situation. And again, it's also a liability safety thing. I mean, children love dogs, and I just have visions of a group of children running up to a dog and one of them getting nipped. And even though it may not happen, we just don't allow animals in the vineyard.
It's a good point about the animals.
Yeah.
Other people have pet peeves or issues. I know Urban Lineberger, when he was growing strawberries, called me up once and said he was pretty upset. He'd had somebody had a heart attack in his strawberry field and dropped dead. And so at the least, you should have some kind of first aid kit around for people who cut themselves or, make sure you have water. People, get heat exhaustion or something like that, because you're kind of in the position of being mom for people, a lot of people who may not spend a lot of time out in the country.
Speaking of that, I'm sure we all know that muscadines attract wasps and bees.
Mhm.
And in our how to pick grapes sheet that we showed people at the beginning, and then we tell them also, point number 3 is look where you're putting your hand. Wasps and bees love grapes too. But some people are allergic to those things and may not even know that. So I always worry about that. Although, I mean, there just isn't but so much you can do about it. We have Benadryl spray that we keep at the stand, for people who aren't allergic, just to take away the pain if they get stung. But spraying your grapes
One
with
thing to think
insecticide,
about doing is to get an EpiPen, which is what people who are seriously
it's not allowed, is it? That's what I've been told.
not allowed
Is
to do it for other people.
Is that you can't get a prescription unless you need it yourself.
Okay.
And we called the Eli Whitney Rescue Squad is just a mile down the road, and we called them about having an EpiPen, and they said, "Don't do it. We're just down the road. We're 5 minutes away. Just call us, and we'll be there."
So there's
we
the,
do-
like,
we
know
do
what
keep
your
it
local
topical.
rescue services.
But we do tell them up front, and I think it helps. We tell them just look where you're putting your hand. Don't just make a grab up in there feeling around.
Yeah, Deborah?
Oh, no, I was.
Oh, you're just
Gnats.
spotting bugs. Okay.
I'm
You're just
spotting gnats.
bugs. All right. So-
I've been on a Zoom with no picture. This is the very first time I've even seen my picture on a Zoom thing. So anyway, forgive me. I don't know how to act.
So I know that there's a lot of word of mouth for Pick Your Own. And for those folks of you who are well established in this, that's probably most of what you do. But wanted to ask if you do anything in terms of promotion or advertising or getting the word out when you open, and also how you collect contact information for your customers, and if you try to reach out to the existing customers the next time. And so, Andy, I'll let you start on that, and then anybody else is welcome to weigh in. So
I'm glad you said the word of mouth idea, because literally we started out just by word of mouth, but now we do Facebook and we have a website, but it's most of our customers, I'd say 75% of our customers are repeat customers and their friends. So again, word of mouth is the best advertisement we do. And we post on the internet with Facebook just to let people know when we are open, because we always get phone calls as to, what time do you open? Are you going to be open next weekend? So we put that information on, but word of mouth is the best advertising that we've found.
Well, I do a little Facebook, but my biggest source of information to Cleveland Countyans is what's called a magazine. It's called the Shelby Shopper. And it's a free newspaper. Of course, you have to pay for your ads, but I've sort of figured the kind of people that like muscadines read the Shelby Shopper, and they tell their friends. So word of mouth is huge. But this ad, anyway, that seems to work. And I've worked with the printers of the Shelby Shopper for years. I, in fact, had such a successful year last year that I put in a similar looking ad, but it said, "Thank you to all the customers that bought muscadines from Triple BBB." So it's a good way to communicate with a lot of people.
great. Other comments for other folks?
I just am joining in by telephone because there's some problem with my computer, so I apologize. And the screen was up there, and I just figured that for some reason the meeting had been delayed, so I apologize. It said it would be starting whenever. So I apologize.
Uh,
This is Carla with Blue Mill
Hey,
Vineyard.
Carla. So Carla, you've not been able to get on by computer. Carla is from Lou Mill Vineyards down in Elizabethtown. We wondered where you were. One of the things that you mentioned when I first talked to you about this was that you wanted to talk about how you integrated Pick Your Own with your existing operation. And I'm just going to drop back to the pictures first, and then you probably can't see them because you're on your phone, but I want to show a few pictures from Lou Mill to kind of orient people to what the place is like, and then we'll get you to talk a little bit. Okay.
Okay. And I might have been copied on the pictures that Denise sent. I
Yeah.
will look really quick.
We'll see what happens here. Let me move on here. Maybe make this move on. Come on. Okay, why will this stop? Okay, well, I'm just gonna have to let it go through that. Okay, so here we have a picture from the mill, which I have visited. And it's a big winery and store as well as doing Pick Your Own. And this is the patio in front of their store, and this is the inside of their store. And so with that little bit of orientation, I'm going to turn this back over to you to talk a little bit about how you all handle Pick Your Own.
Okay. And again, to everyone, I surely do apologize for joining late. As you heard, the sign was up there that said that it would be starting any moment. So time goes very fast here. We have been very successful, we think. The one advantage that we do have is the location of our U-Pick field is behind the main building that houses our gift shop tasting room. And obviously, we have fewer people working the gift shop, doing the wine tastings, and helping people with gifts. And the U-Pick field, we have fewer during the weekdays than we do during the weekends, because we also have events going on, and that brings just more people. But literally what we do behind, the people come into the gift shop. The person working that day, and normally it's only one, with the exception of maybe Fridays in the weekday, we give them a sanitized bucket with a plastic bag inside of it. We show them or instruct them how to walk around on our deck to the U-Pick field. There's nobody out there manning that field. We do tell them which rows, by the number of the rows, to pick on that particular day. Then what they do is and they can get more than one bucket. But then what they do is they fill those bags, and they are double bagged. When it's full, they bring it back to the gift shop, where the customer to the right of the counter itself takes that bag out, that double bag. They put it on the scale, and we can, or whoever is there can read it from behind the cash register. Then they discard that bucket, and this was during COVID. We took them, we made a separate stack, and then as people come in, and pretty much that's it. We weigh them, and they pay for them right there. And that is how it works, and it's real easy. The only thing is, at the end of the day or during the time, and when we're this busy, usually there are at least two people working, as our supply of sanitized buckets is used, and those are returned. We have a caterer's kitchen, and so we have the big stainless steel area where we sanitize the buckets and dry them and then return them back to inside the gift shop behind the counter near the front door. And what that does, we don't have to have somebody manning the field, and people have to walk around. They have to park. We can see where they're parked, so nobody's driving around and leaving without paying for grapes. And it's really that simple. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, Carla, I'm curious, what do you sell the muscadines for per pound?
We charge a flat rate fee to go into the field. We laugh and tell them we're not going to weigh them for what they ate while they were out there, because sometimes it can be very tempting to everybody, because muscadines are great, right? It's $1 to go into the field, and then wait a minute. Let me go see if we've changed this. Can you hold on just one moment? I'm going to step around really quick, and I apologize. I should have gotten this updated. So hold one moment. I'm having a brain freeze.
Yeah, up to the moment.
Hold on. I'll be right back.
Mhm.
Now's the time, Debbie, when you play music.
So I'm gonna, while we're waiting for her, we had a question asking when people are going to open for Pick Your Own. Andy, when do you expect to open?
We usually open Labor Day weekend. That's our opening day.
Deborah, how about you?
Probably, if things are going the way I think they are, probably the end of this month, or at least the first week in September.
Nancy?
I'm thinking the end of the month. It's been so hot that a lot of them are getting kind of tasty right now.
Right.
I don't think it'll be before Labor Day, I think.
Anybody else is welcome. I don't know exactly where everybody else is. We've lost TY, who's a little further east. We'll have to ask about Lou Mill as well, because they're way in the east and they may be open already. So. Let's see if we have other questions here I've missed. No, not so far. Not so far. Patrick Connor. Patrick is a grape breeder in Georgia. And Patrick, do you want to say anything about sort of new varieties or what's going on with grapes that is of interest?
Well, I guess the only one I would point out to that might be of particular interest to Pick Your Own would be Ruby Crisp. It is something
Can you
that,
speak up a little bit? Because I think you're far from your speaker or your microphone. Yeah.
I'm wondering if I've got the wrong, no, it should be gone good.
Good.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. The one that's popular here amongst the technicians and everybody that comes and picks ours is the new Ruby Crisp, because it is so different in texture. And it's just a different eating experience from the traditional muscadines. And we have a lot of people that particularly ask me for that one and really like it. It's also, if customers don't like a strongly flavored muscadine, and some people don't, Ruby Crisp is one they may want to try because it doesn't have as much muscadine taste as some of the other varieties. And to me, that's not a selling point. I like the muscadine flavor, but some people find it a little overpowering and really like that one. So it may be worth trying. The one question I had as a breeder, we've been trying to chase later varieties, and I'm curious what the latest thing you're picking, and whether if you had a variety that was later, would you continue, or is it your season pretty much over by then and you really are not interested in a later variety?
Comment?
Well,
We would be more interested in an earlier variety, but a later one, we can pick all the way up to Thanksgiving.
And do people come? People continue to come?
Yes, as a matter of fact, even after we close, we have people showing up at the gate, even though that we've advertised it on our telephone message and on our website. We still have people showing up that would pick if we had a late variety. but they would also come this week if we had an early variety.
Well, here in Cleveland County, we're in the Upper Piedmont is the description of the area. And we can expect a frost around October 15. So we really have to sell as much as we can before that target date.
Okay. And
Okay, well,
I'm not
you're
being
back.
rude. I'm just back at my desk. Okay,
Great.
because there was some discussion about possibly changing it, and I didn't want to share with you something and then you see it pop up on our website or on our Facebook page different. What we do, it's free to come to our farm all the time unless you are paying for something that you are buying. Can even come to our Christmas festivities, and I know I'm getting out there now. Unless you go through the light show, it's free to come to our farm. We're not an admission farm. But for the U-Pick field, we charge $1 per person to go into the field. If they take a child who might eat out there, it is. I mean, use common sense. But I mean, $1 per person to go into the field, and then $1 per pound for the grapes. Charge.
Okay.
What varieties do you have for them to pick?
We have Carlos. We have some Supreme. We have, Lord, I don't even know. We have about 4 or 5 varieties out there. So we will have, and that is what we call the main U-Pick field. And then what will happen, because more of the Supremes are in a way back field and then a down the road field. So there are some what we call some test grapes, test market, test whatever you'd like to call it. This sounds very informal, I know. And I did not get to prepare for this because COVID has gone through here again. And anyway, so I apologize. But anyway, what those later varieties, we will have to move them from that field, but people are not coming in mass as much by then. But we do, because our vineyard is a self drive-through tour, so we can give them directions based on the signage of the self drive-through tour as to where that different U-Pick field is. If they came earlier in the season and went to the normal, regular U-Pick field, and it was later in the season, it would be a different field, but it would be very easy for them to get there.
You ever have people just go and pick a bunch of grapes and then leave and not pay for them?
No, because we can
You probably don't know if you do. So.
Well, I mean, see, we have people on the farm, and I mean, maybe there may have been one person, but see, that's another reason that we don't allow people to go out there. We don't allow them to park near that field. We don't allow them to take their own containers to the field.
Thank you.
So if they come around in our unique situation, if they were to let's just say slip through Lucille's garden, I mean, we would see them go to their car. And we have all kinds of cameras at Lou Mill Vineyard. We can see everything except, privacy of inside of cabins. I don't mean that bad. We can.
So I'm going to ask our presenters what sort of one piece of advice they would have for new people just getting started and pick your own, whether they're new growers or whether they've been, selling another way and they're just adding pick your own to their operation. And while they're responding, I want to encourage the rest of you to think about questions you have and raise your hand. And again, whether you're an existing grower or somebody just getting started, stupid questions are very welcome, very helpful.
Yeah.
And so raise your hand or put something in the chat, and we'll wrap up after we hear from them and after we deal with any questions that have come up in the next few minutes. So
and there is one other thing. We
Sure.
do not do this, but I know some people do it for muscadine, strawberries, blueberries, whatever. Um, they sell a bucket, and you have to order. You can go online and pre-order the bucket and the amount of fruit that that bucket will hold. Now, some people did that, especially for strawberries, but and a few people did it for muscadines. Now we didn't because we just don't have someone to handle that part. Another thing because our cabins are online and that kind of thing, and it still takes a person to manage all of that, and we don't have anybody. It wouldn't make sense for us to spend the money on one person to manage that. But some people had a lot of success with that. And that way, if they had anybody to pick, the people could also go online and buy those that had been picked by someone on the farm. They had the choice either way.
That's a good point, especially if you have a really busy operation. I've
Right.
certainly seen it for strawberries.
Yes.
So let me ask you, do you have a piece of advice for anybody getting started in this?
Well, I would say now, don't be afraid of it. It's actually really simple. Um, the one thing you can't always take for granted, I mean, and I mentioned the parking because being able to see the people, I mean, you want to trust people, but business is business. And if you're being open to be at a loss and you're not from a vantage point that you can see who is picking and when they're coming, where they're coming into the field and how they're leaving and where they're paying, you know, we just tried to make it as cost effective as possible and a good experience that was easy for our customers and for the people working in the gift shop. And and we just, I mean, really, we do now what we do on our Facebook page and on our website. Of course, we blast it. We blast it, blast it, blast it, and that way you can monitor and manage and promote what's going on every few days. And people, people are very responsive to that. And I know we've done a thing one year when we had a bumper crop and we just had so many grapes, and all of us, none of us like to see any fruit go to waste. We just did our really big our last Saturday and we made it free. And that as a thank you day. But now that's at a time when we did have an abundance of fruit, and we had taken everything that we needed for our mechanical harvest, for our divine foods, and for our wine for Lou Mill Vineyard. So customers did really appreciate that, and of course we featured all of our muscadine products, and that is a lot at Lou Mill. So people had their grapes and then they spent money on those products, those shelf stable products to take home, jams, jellies, juices, ciders, that kind of thing. And by the way, if you don't have them, you should contact me after this meeting and think about purchasing some of your own with your free custom private label. And everything is shelf stable. But what I'm saying is that day we ended on a good note, just like oh my goodness, I can't think of her name. With her thank you ad in the paper was leaving a very good reminder, not only of the great grapes, but the experience that they had on your farm. And so something positive in the end, I think is very good. Whether you do an email blast, whether you do put it out on Facebook that you thank them, or if you take out an ad where you're hitting another specific group of customers and potential customers. And another thing you might think of that we have done, we did not do it last year, but there were a couple of radio stations, and we did a giveaway, like for one person, whoever called in first, they could get one bucket of grapes for free, and they could go into the field for free. And so they always like giveaway things. So that was good too. And if you are one of our customers who do have the Muscadine products, we've also done that before too as a giveaway on the radio, and or you can even do it, like the first, if you're really trying to get people there and you hadn't gotten the word out or it's not out good, you could do that too, like the first 5 customers or something like that, or a contest. How many people did you pick at X vineyard or winery today? And they'll just follow you and stay engaged with what's happening, not just opening and closing, but throughout your harvest.
I think Carla is an expert marketer.
She is. Carly, it's good to hear your voice. I'm sorry I can't see you.
Well, I'm sorry. I don't know. Now, I did just have, like a few days ago, an update to my laptop and a brand new laptop, but I have been on another meeting like this, so I'm sorry too. I apologize for not being able to see everybody.
Well, Debbie, in answer to your question, I have some other thoughts. And Carly, you actually stimulated one of them. In preparation to do Come Pick Your Own, you have to be assured that you have a lovely vineyard in which to have to entertain people. That's so important. Of course, I'm on a main road and people drive by all the time and I hear comments, oh, their grapes are looking good. So when I'm open, they want to come in because they've seen how beautiful it is driving up and down the road. Also, decide how you're going to have your customers pick grapes in some whatever kind of container, and you've heard several different ways to do that. Preparation is the key. Know your grapes, know where they are in case someone asks specifically.
Right,
what
that's
type
a great
of grape.
thing.
Mhm.
Yes.
Anyway, I'll turn it over to Andy. Those are my thoughts.
Those are good. That's very good. Andy.
I'm glad you brought it up. We do use signage to great advantage. We've got the signs that are maybe 18 by 24 that fit on the little wire stand. And the road we're on, Whitney Road, is only 2 miles long. So we'll put a sign at the end of that road on either end, and then we'll put a few right in front of the vineyard, and then one with a big arrow going up our driveway. So we find that it draws people in, that or it reminds them that, oh yeah, there's the vineyard that's going to be open next week when they drive on our road. So the signage really helps. And then to echo Debbie, you've got to be customer oriented. You've got to have a clean vineyard. At the end of the day, go through every row. I mean, you'd be amazed at some of the things we find in the vineyard after Pick Your Own. So make sure it's
That's
clean.
a great idea.
You want a portable bathroom, one of the nicer ones, not just a construction one. You want a hand washing station, places where people can, picnic tables, some with trash cans where they can have a picnic lunch, and if they want to stay afterwards. So aim for.
Pardon me.
Yeah, and a place to throw those disposable diapers with a lid.
Yes.
Oh Lord, yes.
Other
And
advice for people, for other growers?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. There was one important thing that I forgot, and we did this about did it several years ago. We haven't done it this time as much, but what we did, one year, about a month out, we started advertising on our Facebook page and on our website, and we literally took a picture every day in the same spot of the same grapes growing. and that got lots of response.
Mm, mhm.
I guess everybody wanted to see that grape, right?
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
you could even put one of those cameras up and you could just have a live cam going all the
And
time.
that's true.
Anybody wants to
That's
check
good.
or see how your vineyard is growing, they can look at it. I mean, people do that all the time. It's like, oh my God, you know, you can watch
Yeah,
corn grow. People find it
that's right.
incredibly relaxing to watch a field of corn grow. So,
Yeah.
Goodness.
yeah. Yeah, check in on my field. See, oh my gosh, look, it's tasseling, you know. So.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
All right. Well, we've come to the official end of this time period. I want to thank everybody for taking part in this. I want to thank Andy and Deborah and Carla and all the rest of you who have chipped in on this. I will try to put together a few of the resources that were mentioned and send it out to folks. We did not touch much on the food safety, but there have been a couple of webinars in the last recently, and I think last year, they specifically talk about food safety for muscadines, including Pick Your Own, and I will find the links to those and share that with you as well. And again, if you're not currently a member of the association, I'll probably be pursuing you to make sure you at least you know how to do how to join. Thank you all. If you have ideas for other kinds of webinars that the association should do, feel free to email me, and we'll see what we can do, because it's really not very hard to do. And I really like the sort of grower to grower kind of event that we've been able to do here today. So thank you all. So,
Debbie, thank
you.
you. It's been a
Yes,
real
thank
Yeah.
that's
experience.
I
good.
just think I always learn something from every one of these. Um, and that is what is good. And you may even learn how to, revise something you're already doing based on successes of other people. So I
And I
appreciate
think if you can
everybody.
go visit somebody else's vineyard, you know, drop in,
Yes.
you learn so much just by seeing how they set it up and how they handle, you know, especially if you're just getting started. Visit 3 or 4 of them, and just
And
look
and
around.
this sounds, I don't mean this to sound in any way negative, but the thing about it, if you do have things for sale, whether maybe you do have a shed in the field and you don't have a real tasting room or store yet, but you need something that people can buy because they get hot, they get tired, they're surrounded by beauty, and they want to come back, whether you're selling bottled water, bottled juice, things like that that will add to the revenue that you've made from the field. You have a whole other wholesale to retail opportunity, no matter how small or how large you want to make it. And people love that. And that makes them return during seasons that are not you pick muscadine season if you're open.
It's a really nice point. So sell the other products as well, and especially that bottled water. Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
you need something. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to close this up here. We can,
Okay.
I wish we had a way to continue the conversations another way, but I don't know what it is. And we'll try and do more of this. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye.
All
Bye
right.
Thank
all.
you.
Thanks for
Bye-bye.
attending.
Happy muscadine picking.
Thank you, Carla.